Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. So my last video was about late game compositions for every civilization, and it really got the discussion rolling around what's the best late game compositions. However, for this video I decided to take a step back and focus a little bit more about the early game, because at the end of the day, not every game gets the Imperial Age, but almost every game of Age of Empires has a Dark Age and usually has a Feudal Age as well. And so it's very important to be well versed in early game, and one of my favorite strategies is the Scout Rush. So in this video I'm going to be going through my top 5 best Scout Rush civilizations for you guys to pick up in Age of Empires 2. Let's hop right in and check it out. Now starting off at number 5, we've got the Khmer. If you think about what a Scout Rush is meant to accomplish, which is basically getting yourself a little bit of tempo and allowing you to set up back home, and it does cost a lot of food to be able to go for those scouts, Khmer just feels like the perfect setup to use the strategy with. First of all, you don't need a barracks, you save a lot of wood early on, and also your farms work really efficiently, so making a few farms early on with Khmer gives you a massive advantage. So it's one reason why you want to go scouts with them over archers in a lot of cases, because it allows you to make more farms earlier on, and that just develops your economy super quickly. There is one downside to Khmer, and is one of the reasons why I couldn't put it higher up on the list despite me loving the civ, is the fact that because you don't need a barracks, sometimes you find yourself vulnerable to a lot of spears in scout versus scout situation, where you're going purely scouts because you didn't make a barracks using your civilization bonus, and they're going scouts but they're also mixing in spears, and it could get really complicated if they start sending those spearmen forward, and it forces you to either make a barracks late yourself, which is not very ideal, or to switch into some archers to deal with the spearmen. So that's definitely one downside to the civilization, but aside from that, I think it's a really cool opening strategy with Khmer, and I think that the best thing about the civ with the Scout Rush is to have the option to garrison in houses so that you can have your army elsewhere using your mobility, and then having a natural defensive tool with those houses to keep your villagers safe. And then afterwards you can work on your full walls and you can protect yourself at home, but you do have those house hopping mechanic to keep yourself a little bit safer than other civilizations early on. By the way, I bet you can't guess my number 1 civ on this list. I think that absolutely zero people will be able to guess it, by the way, so feel free right now to drop your guess in the comments below about what you think is going to be the number 1 civ, because like I said, I highly doubt you're going to guess it. Alright, let's go on to number 4. Over at number 4, we've got the Magyars. Now the Magyars are a very interesting civilization because I think that they are exactly what you need for a Scout Rush. I mean, think about it. You get foraging for free right off the bat, and you also get cheaper scouts. What is exactly holding them back? How is there civilizations that are better than Magyars? Well, the truth is with Magyars that although the Scout Rush is fantastic, unfortunately because of their lack of economy bonus, the free foraging and the discounted scouts act like an economy bonus, which is a great tool, but other civilizations can do the same thing that Magyars can do. We're using their economy bonus to just get that upgrade and those savings. So Magyars really isn't that special when it comes to the world of scout rushing, and I say that, but they are number 4 on the list, so they're definitely up there, but in my opinion they're not quite cut out to be the best. However, I will say in an extended scout rush, so in like a full feudal scout rush when you're making like 20, 30, even 40 scouts in feudal age, Magyars can easily be considered a top 1 civilization for that, just because the savings you're getting just add up so much. But in this video I'm really valuing the early scout rush, like the first 3 to 5 scouts, what you can do with that, how does that set up your game. And for the Magyars, it's definitely solid, but if your opponent gets a couple spears out, you know, you're really not getting yourself in that great of a position usually with the Magyars. So solid overall civ, very beginner friendly, very easy to pick up, but because of the lack of an economy bonus, it almost forces you to make a lot of scouts, which doesn't really amount to a whole lot in a lot of cases. At number 3, we've got the Franks. I know a lot of you guys probably expected the civilization to be up at number 1 just because this civilization is like kind of like the king of cavalry. However, when it comes to the Scout Rush with Franks, I would say it does exactly what Magyars does, but I would say it does it even a little bit better. Although it's different. Let me get into it. So for Franks, what's strong about their Scout Rush is the fact that you get the extra HP from the get-go, so your scouts have a base of 54 HP at the start of Feudal Age, and you're also getting the economy bonus. Free horse collar and faster foraging just makes for an amazing start with a Scout Rush. You get to save resources right away because you don't get horse collar. Your berries work faster, so you naturally get the feudal age with a lot of food, and you have those extra HP on the scouts. That's 3 bonuses in 1 from the get-go, and it's for that reason that I think that they are better than the Magyars, because they get the same strength scouts right off the bat because extra HP versus foraging, but then Franks can work their way to foraging with their economy bonus. But where do Franks suffer compared to Magyars? Franks don't get bloodlines, so for that reason Franks as the feudal age goes on, in an extended feudal age, Franks are actually one of the worst civilizations. But like I said, I'm really valuing the first 3 to 5 scouts because in my opinion, that's what defines a scout rush. Afterwards, you can decide to add more, or you can simply transition to something else. And the whole point is really just to get the tempo, harass your opponent, do some damage, and then kind of set up for your next strategy, which can either be knights, maybe expo, or maybe just wall up and develop your economy back home. But overall, I would say Franks are a very solid option. Once again, extremely beginner friendly, and in my opinion, one of the smoothest starts you can have with the Franks, but not the most powerful. Next up, and we're getting to the juicy stuff, at number 2, we've got the Mongols. Now, the Mongols might actually be one of the craziest scout rush civilizations out there. You're able to go up super quickly, something like 16, 17 pop, and you're able to afford consistently 4 to 5 scouts right off the bat. It might require you to lure a couple deer to get like some crazy uptimes, but 18 pop is super easy to accomplish, and your scouts have extra line of sight at that. So fast uptime, extra line of sight on the scouts. It's exactly what you need to get a successful scout rush, and in my opinion, it's very hard to open scouts with Mongols and not find any opportunity to do damage. It's very rare that your opponent will be walled that early, so you're naturally going to be able to break in or find a way into their opponent's base and start harassing their villagers before they're ready to kind of react to it. Why are Mongols not that strong despite having one of the best scout rushes in the game? They suffer from a little bit of what Magyar suffers from. They don't have an economy bonus past that early game, so as soon as the early game gas has kind of been used up, they kind of transition a little bit more poor into the mid and late game, and so Mongols can be quite tricky when it comes to how you transition away from the scout rush. But in general, their scout rush itself is extremely powerful, and it's one of the best ways to open with the Mongols. Alright, before I show you guys my number 1, which I'm really hyping it up now, but I hope it lives up to its name, I've got some honorable mentions for you guys, so I'm going to run through them real quick. The first one is the Gurjaras. It's hard to place the Gurjaras because their scout rush is fantastic because of the fact that they start with a camel. Having that camel alongside the scouts is an extremely advantageous position to put yourself in. However, the thing with Gurjaras is, and the problem I have with the civilization when it comes to scout rushing, is the fact that you don't really have the best economy because you're giving up that early sheep, so you don't get the sheep right away. And so it just feels like I don't have that much food to work with in the early game. Yes, it does get you some nice trickle over time, but especially with the nerfed numbers, Gurjaras just doesn't feel like it's that insane when it comes to a scout rush. I will say it has an amazing transition into the castle age, and it has a very smooth start for the most part, but I don't think it has that kind of power that Mongols, Franks, and Magyars have. And for that reason, it's on the honorable mention. It's definitely up there in the top 8, top 10 scout rushes, especially because of that camel, but I just couldn't bring myself to put it anything higher, simply like I said, because you don't have that food bank that you have with other civilizations. Next up, we've got the Hindustani for the honorable mentions. They're the complete opposite from Gurjaras when it comes to the context of a scout rush. Gurjaras don't have that big food bank upon reaching feudal age usually. However, Hindustani do get that because their villagers are cheaper in Dark Age. However, Hindustani don't really get much more than that. So you just get like a couple hundred food that you save in the early game, which in my opinion is a fantastic bonus. So don't get me wrong, it's really strong, but they don't really get too much more than that for their scout rush. And so they're definitely strong, but it's not as special for me when it comes to a scout rush with Hindustani compared to some of the other civilizations. And I don't feel like I can get that much damage done with the scout rush either. Next up for the honorable mention, honestly, this one is a very weird one, so I'm just gonna quickly mention it. It's gonna be the Turks, not because of any crazy bonus or any crazy savings, but in my opinion, just one bonus that sticks out here is the fact that they get an extra pierce armor on the scouts and free light cav, which means that your scouts, if they last through feudal age, get upgraded for free and get extra value. I don't think Turks are a great scout rush civilization in like most games, but the reason I mention them here is that they fill a small kind of niche thing that no other civilization can do, which is destroy archer civs with only scouts and force archer civs to make pikemen in order to deal with light cav. It's the only civilization, in my opinion, in the game that can force an archer civ to open pikemen because of how strong their light cav are in castle age. Not only that, but your scouts in feudal age take 1 damage from an archer with fletching. So a fully upgraded archer in feudal age does 1 damage to your scouts if you get the armor. So if you don't get the armor, they do 1 damage. If they get fletching, you need armor, and then they do 1 damage. So having your opponent doing 1 damage per shot shots, it just means that you're going to easily be able to clear up their archers with your scouts. So like I said, while I don't think Turks are an amazing scout rush civ overall, they fill that nice anti-archer role, and it's also amazing to have that extra value come Castle Age. Alright, finally the moment we've all been waiting for, the number one scout rush civ on my list. It's going to come as a bit of a shocker to you guys, but I'm going to have to explain it to you and just kind of show you my reasoning, and hopefully some of you guys will agree or at least see where I'm coming from. The number one best scout rush civ in my opinion is the Chinese. It's going to sound crazy because I know a lot of you guys aren't fond of the Chinese, but Chinese is the only civilization in the game that can go scouts versus any civilization, be completely fine and pull ahead. It's literally the only civilization that can do that, because you start with an extra 2 villagers, or you start with an extra 3, minus some resources, but what that translates to is you're going to be up 2 villagers come feudal age, and not only that, you get cheaper upgrades. So if you tech into forging, if you tech into bloodlines, if you tech into your economy upgrades, tech into armor, you're saving a little bit of resources every time you make an upgrade. And so as the feudal age goes on, you're still getting more and more savings. So in my opinion, Chinese, they don't get the fastest scout rush because you can't up super quickly with the civilization, but they get such a solid scout rush. And in my opinion, like I said again, you can go scouts versus any civ with Chinese, be completely fine and pull ahead just by taking no damage. It's really something special, and it's something that I think maybe Gurjaras can do as well. So maybe Gurjaras should have been higher up on my list with the same logic, but I think Chinese just simply do it better and do it more consistently than the Gurjaras can. And for that reason, I think that Chinese definitely is the best scout rush civilization. Don't get me wrong, it's still a great civ to push with the scouts and look to do damage, but let's say you're up against a really fast civilization like Mongols, all you have to do with Chinese is open scouts, defend a little bit, match their early pressure, and then you're going to be miles ahead because of that extra economy advantage and the extra villagers. Hopefully I surprised you a little bit with some picks on my list. Let me know what you guys think, if you disagreed or if you agreed, and give me your reasoning in the comments below. I'm interested to see how many of you guys actually guessed Chinese, but that's my take on the situation and on the scout rush. If this video does well, next week I will make a top 5 best archer rush civilizations, and we can have a lot of discussion around that topic as well. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.